This time on Meet Your Heroes in association with Haggerty, we drive a car that many regard as the best of its kind. The definition of true rear-wheel drive sports car perfection, and a car that persuaded Johnny to get his wallet out.
Good morning.
Guten Morgen.
Do you live in a field now?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
It's quite appropriate that we're speaking German today because, of course, we are going to see one of the greatest German cars ever made. And Johnny, I think we should tell the people at home, actually, we're going to see your car, aren't we?
Yes, we are. Yeah, so we're going to go to Allumy Motorsport at Donington Circuit, just down the road from us. And yeah, so we got there a factory manual E46.
A true M car, because M started in 1972, didn't actually introduce their first car till 1978-79 with the M1. What were they doing for 6 years? That's what I want to know.
I just don't think they realised the worth of their sub-brand, as it were. Yeah, like, you know, the M cars are so iconic. They've always been like a butch version of like the everyday car. Like you look at the M5. You know,
well, the M535 really started, did it? So the M5 is preceded by the M535. That to me is the first proper M car because that's the template, isn't it? You take a relatively mundane family car, you stuff it full of great suspension, some styling tweaks, and a really cool little engine, and that is the M recipe, isn't it? Because the M1, I think, is a bit of an anomaly because it's a proper little supercar, isn't it, basically? That's not a car that was anything other than a supercar, but M have always been the magic that you apply to a normal road car in the range and make it special.
I mean, the 46 M3 was going up against, like, power-wise and, well, in terms of everything, it was against the 996 911.
Yeah.
That's, like, what its rival was. It was... I suppose with an M car, you say you take an everyday car, but then you're out there to try and be a bit of a supercar killer.
And on track, they really are, aren't they?
Oh, they're great. Yeah, they're great. Nowadays, they're not that quick, but it's not about that. It's like an E30 is such an iconic M car that started the whole M3 world, and they were 215 brake horsepower. Out, you know,
which isn't a lot of horsepower, is it really? In the grand
no, it's
scheme of
not.
things.
But
well, the very first M3s were 197.
Were they?
That's all they had. So really nothing at all, is it?
No.
But it's the balance of the car, isn't it? The lightness and the deftness of the control.
Yeah, but this is the thing. So when we keep talking about bigger brake horsepowers and all that, because the cars were lighter, and as cars get younger, shall we say, there's a lot more safety equipment built into them. So you've got airbags, you've got all these things, and with sat-nav, even just like the sat-nav in an E46 and all the gubbins in the back, for the DVD and stuff, they're really heavy items. 200 brake horsepower and like a little E30 lightweight bodied car is still fun to drive. And
so which is the greatest of all the M cars? And if you had to single one out from that incredible lineage, which would be the one? If you could have one car bought for you, what would it be in the garage?
One single M car?
Yeah, one car to rule them all.
A road car?
Yeah. You can have one, you can keep it forever, you can't ever sell it. Which one are you going to take home?
I would go E46 M3 CSL.
Very good. I would go for E30 Johnny Cicotto.
That's a cool car.
That's a very cool car. So let's go and see one of the old stages. Let's go and see one of the true classics. Oh, and here we are. Isn't that a nice looking car?
It's gorgeous. I'm a bit biased.
Because, Johnny, I think we should let the ladies and gentlemen know, for reasons of journalistic integrity, this is your car.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very nice. Because the E46 to me represented return to form. Because my favourite of all M3s, if we're talking about how it looks, is the E30, because you get what I think is a very cool shape. You get those lovely box arch, you get that incredible 2.3.
Yeah.
What a car. We then fast forward to the E36, which is a car that we both love.
But narrow-bodied.
Narrow-bodied. Why did they do that, Johnny? Why did they take the recipe that had worked so well in the first car with the wide arches, which everybody loves a box arch, don't they? Cue montage of Nova, Integrale, etc. here. And then they went, you know what? That worked so well last time. You know what we're going to do? Make it look exactly like the 328 And actually, there's not a huge performance difference between a sorted 328 and an M3.
No, so you had the
E30.
328, then you had the 3 litre, and then they did the 3.2 Evos, didn't they? But yeah, I don't know. I love a 36. I quite like the narrow, but I don't know what they'd look with.
They'd look better. Because Schnitzer did one, didn't they? Schnitzer did a wide arch E36, and they're incredibly rare. And they've got the box arch on, like an E30 box arch, and they look incredible. And you look at that car that Schnitzer did, and you think, why on earth did the factory not do that? But then when they bring out the E46, all is forgiven, because it's one of the best looking coupes they've ever done, I think.
Yeah.
But you get the arches back, you get the bumper back. I mean, as you approach the front of an E46 M3, and we'll put a shot here, it just looks phenomenal, doesn't it?
The thing is, there's so many styling cues, so we have to talk about the history. We will go into, they did build a CSL of these. So they had, this was like your standard, I say off the shelf car, your standard M3, you then had the CS and then you had the CSL. But the CSLs, they echoed back to the E9 CSL from the 70s, which was the lightweight cars. So they took a lot of styling cues from that, and they introduced quite a few things. So the side vents on the wings,
which do look very retro, don't they?
Yeah, but they were on some of the CSLs, so they did like a Zender kit that had those on. But as you say, like the bonnet bulge, and this car led the design cues going forward for a lot of BMWs. So if you look on the M3s, M4s, have got like the little sculpted in vents on the wings, which was like kind of an echo to this. You got the bonnet bulges that stayed on all the M cars ever after this. So like when you get that car coming behind you,
you can see that's the best view of this car for me. The front of this car looks like nothing else.
But you don't need the bonnet bulge.
It just
really,
looks good though, doesn't it?
You don't need it, but yeah, it looks.
It's like when you pack out your swimming trunks on holiday. You know, just a little bit extra on the front. Everyone's impressed.
Yeah, of course.
Just me?
Just you. Just you.
So what are the main aesthetic differences, Johnny? If we're looking at an E46 M3, the things that define it from the standard E46 coupe? We've
just spoken about the bonnet bulge.
Yeah.
You've got the wings, which have got the vents in. You do see some snidey little replicas, but the biggest giveaway for a 46 M3, even if it does look like it's got the bonnet and the wings, is the rear arches, because it's a lot more haunchy.
They look fabulous from the back. To me, this is the most muscular of all of the M cars. This is the one that has, for me, the right proportions, because it's all big and bustly down below, isn't it? Nice, thin, very elegant glass house with lots of visual weight at the bottom. 18s or 19s, what's your thought? Obviously, they came on standard on 18s.
They came with 18s. Okay, so these wheels are the 19s. Now,
they look better, but they don't work as well, do they?
No, but I hated, so the first one of these that I had was about a year old, so it was about 2002. And I was like 19 and I bought it and I traded it, and it was a black manual, but they came with the diamond cut wheels with the black centres. Now, in terms of integrity of an alloy wheel, when you keep refurbing it, you should only diamond cut a wheel 2 times, people say.
Yeah.
Because obviously the more you cut off it, you're removing and the structural integrity of the wheel. So I never was a fan of that. So what we did was, our good friend at Bush Tyres, we did the lightest shadow chrome possible. So if you look at it, you get, because of the light reflecting, within the spokes, it looks almost as if it's kind of been painted and then the front shiny. So went for that option, and then when you write on top of them, they just look better.
So this is the first CAN bus BMW 3 Series, of course, because it was technologically cleverer than the E36. It's also a lot stiffer. You love a bit of stiffness.
I do.
This is 73% more torsionally rigid than the car it replaced.
They were really good. But talking about the wheels and stuff, as you were saying, like 18s and 19s, they do drive better on 18s.
Yeah,
but
you prefer less inches, don't you? You've always said to me.
Yeah, it just rides a lot better.
There is such a thing as too many inches.
There is, and
spoils comfort, spoils enjoyment.
Yeah, it does.
Can be too harsh.
Same width, but just that 1 inch stubbier.
Yeah, so remember that, girls and boys. Johnny, SMG gearbox. So 18s and 19s, that's one debate on this. The other great debate on these, and of course, the thing that always blows my mind is you could get on this, the SMG gearbox, the flappy paddles, and let's be honest, during this time, flappy paddles generally on any car weren't great, were they? No one had quite nailed the technology. Now they're brilliant. This kind of point in time, not brilliant.
So this is a manual car, but as you know, I've also got an M3 CS.
Yeah.
Which is SMG, and I like it.
Why did they do it? Because also the CSL, the flagship car, potentially one of the greatest BMWs ever made.
Yes.
ever. And we'll talk about the spec on that in a second. Why did they put the SMG in? What is the advantages? You've got one with, one without.
Because it's flexing technology, and you know, if you go on any, and I mean any, M3 forum, whether it's M3 cutters or there's a Facebook group, there's always that debate saying, oh yeah, but it's SMG. Essentially, in terms of values, an SMG Cabriolet E46 is the
bottom of the pipe.
Bottom. Then,
but actually, probably the nicest one to cruise about in.
It is a manual gearbox. It's the same gearbox, but it's got a sequential manual pump on it.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a funny one. If you don't know how to drive it, there's 5...
Because you have to kind of back off a little bit. If you back off between shifts just a tiny bit, it makes it much smoother, doesn't it?
So the sequential manual is a manual gearbox. So it's the same principle as driving a manual car. So when you go to change gear, you come off the accelerator, put it into gear, and then your foot back on.
Yeah.
However, with the SMGs, when you're fully on attack mode, you can just bang through and just keep your foot buried. There's 6 settings on the SMG, so it changes the rate of the gear change. So you've got 1 which is super slow, so it's very gentle.
Progressively gentle and smooth.
Yeah, and then obviously the quicker you go, then the more there is. You unlock the 6th, if you like, by turning off all the traction control and the aids.
That's like the Easter egg that they've hidden in there for you.
Yeah, and then you get it even quicker. So
somebody was thinking about buying one of these and they found the perfect car, and in every way it was what they wanted, but because it's, say, a CS, it's got the SMG, or it was an option box. Would you say buy it? Yeah,
so I specifically wanted a CS. I bought mine in February 2018. I didn't want carbon black, which this car is, and my CS is.
Yeah.
I didn't want carbon black, I didn't want an SMG, and that's what I bought, because it was...
Nice car.
Yeah, and it was finding a CS, which is what I wanted. Because, believe it or not, the CS is the most rare model that they ever made. They made more CSLs. So
because this country was actually the country that took the most CSLs, wasn't it? We bought more CSLs in this part of Europe than anywhere else.
So you know when we were doing the 997 GTS video?
Great car.
Great car, yeah. So great you bought it. So that was like a run-out model, and that had 17 odd grand's worth of extras chucked at it. The CS had stuff off the CSL, so it didn't have the multifunctional steering wheel, so it didn't have cruise control, it just had the track mode. So just one button on the suede Alcantara steering wheel. Then you had the CSL suspension, you had the CSL brakes, but then you didn't have the lightweight body. You also had CSL wheels, which were made by BBS. They were 19s as well. Really nice, pretty wheel. A lot of people do put those on and take these off. It's a popular modification. But the CS, I think, if they made 200 odd CSLs, they made like 180.
I think we got almost 440 CSLs, I think, in this country. We got a lot of cars.
Yeah,
but we should talk about the differences between a CS and a CSL, because a CSL truly is light power. It truly is light. It's 110 kilos lighter than this car. Yeah,
so essentially the normal M3 and the CSL were 2 ends of the spectrum. So this was like the full fat, you know, kind of your Harman Kardon and your heated leather, your sat nav and all the rest of it. The CSL had carbon roof. Now carbon roof isn't just like weight saving.
7 kilos?
Yeah, but the thing is, what people don't understand is they see carbon roof and they say it's weight saving. What it actually is, it's far more than that, because it reduces, it lowers your centre of gravity, because you've got less weight at the top of the vehicle.
Yeah, because 7 kilos here is like saving sort of 14 kilos down there, isn't it? Because it's where it is in the linear polar moment of momentum, whatever it's called.
Yeah, whatever it's called.
Polar moment of inertia.
Yeah, but essentially by having...
once.
Yeah, but essentially by having that weight there removed, you lower the centre of gravity, better handling. CSL's had a carbon airbox.
Oh, that's the thing about a CSL, though. It's that airbox is so beautiful, and also adds to the induction noise, doesn't it?
The noise is insane. There's people like Jeff Steele, so they'll make the carbon boxes up, and then you have to do what's called an N map when you do that, because alters the fueling, but the sound...
You get composite rear deck lid on a CSL. You also get those crazy rear seats, because this has proper, really comfy rear seats, very substantially made. They're almost like a token item on the CSL, aren't they? They're like paper thin. Yeah. You can actually see daylight through them. They're almost there just to kind of conform the car, aren't they?
So you had carbon door cards, carbon centre console, you had no centre armrest. The CSLs came from factory, unless you spec them up, so they had no aircon and they had no stereo. So they had the composite rear boot lid, which I actually bought a genuine one, and I've got on my CS.
Worth a few quid, that, mate.
Yeah, so years ago, and I mean years ago, Paul, I spec'd up or priced up a front bumper with BMW, and it was like 3,000 quid for a front bumper.
What?
Now, take that price and just keep multiplying. I don't even know where it would be. The interiors, just the seats, rear seats and door cards, you could easily get 10 grand for that. The wheels on a CSL, you're probably looking, depending on condition, 1,500 quid to 2 grand.
Yeah.
The boot lids, brand new, are about £1,000. Currently on the market, they're fetching about 2.5, maybe 3 grand just for the boot lid. So
crazy, isn't it?
when you start breaking it up, the airbox is worth a bloody fortune.
And they look so good, don't they?
And they
the engine,
sound
of
so
course,
good.
the engine on this is really why you buy this car, isn't it? This is one of the finest engines. Even if you don't have the carbon airbox, even if you're just on a standard E46 with a panel filter, still sounds good, still performs well, loads of horsepower, NA engine. Of course, the cars now are all turbocharged. Have they lost their character when they lost this configuration?
I don't know, because they went from this, so they did the E30s, which are a 4-pot.
Yeah.
Then, even though they were making 6 cylinders, but they took the M1 engine and took 2 banks off, didn't they?
Yeah.
To get into DTM quickly. That's just, just taking what they had. So you had the 36 was a 6-cylinder, this was a 6-cylinder. You then went to the 92, which was a V8. I drove one of those when they were nearly new, and I was like, I wasn't too sure, and so I kind of stuck with these. But then I did drive a non-competition pack car, and a non-comp car, whether if you had this and then you went to a CS, it drives completely different to a CSL. Then with the E92s, they did the standard car, and then they did the competition packs. Same with the F80 M3s and the M4s, they offered comp packs. Now in the UK, because nobody buys, or very rarely buys, non-compact cars, even on the M2s, everyone says, I want the stiffer suspension, I want the better wheels, I want the better handling and the tweaks. We've stopped, as a country, stopped selling non-competition BMW cars.
Because people understand what they want when they're
But they really do drive very differently. It really is.
So what's the sweet spot then? If someone's looking at this video thinking, I'm watching this because I want to buy an E46 M3, what are the ones we should want? If you buy on budget, as you say, buy an SMG cab. If you want one to keep, one to treasure, one to enjoy, one to invest in, what's the spec?
This is the sweet spot. If you can find a manual CS, that for me would be the ultimate. But talking about the gearboxes...
Well, the ultimate would actually be the GTR, wouldn't it? But there's only 3 of those.
What, with the V8s?
Yeah.
They're quite cool.
Yeah, we're never going to get to drive one of those, are we?
No. Well, we might do.
Maybe we could go to the museum. Maybe they're watching this and go, these guys look like they know what they're doing. Unlikely. Let's invite them to the museum, they can drive the GTR. But
people have been... so you can take the SMG gearbox and convert it. So you can make a manual car. You could put it up on axle stands over the weekend. There's so many people who've done it.
Yeah.
So anyway, the conversion isn't too bad. There are companies out there who do it for you, charge you 3.5 grand, but there are people who've bought bits from BMW themselves. If you buy a manual bell housing so you don't have to machine it out, then you can always put it back to SMG. So there is a pump in the engine bay. They are one of the problems where they fail, and it keeps chucking the car into neutral. So as it is older technology, some of them do rear their heads a little bit with a couple of issues, but that's when people start to convert them to manuals, because if the SMG pump goes and the expense of replacing that and all the rest of it, they go, do you know what, now's the time. Some people, as I say, it's such an argument. It's like, who's your favourite kid? It's just one of those. I don't like any of them.
Price-wise, obviously the Haggerty price guide only goes up to the E36, and that will tell you exactly what to pay for one of those. This is just on the cusp of becoming a classic, isn't it? It's just about to tip into that point.
A few years ago, crazy, CSLs were 100 grand.
Yeah, so what are the prices then? Obviously Haggerty tells us on the E36, but on the E46 we're going to use the John T. May price guide. What should we be paying for these cars?
As much as possible.
Yeah. So obviously the one to buy, John, isn't it, is the coupe manual. With 92,000 miles is considered to be the optimum mileage, isn't it?
That's so strange.
Yeah.
This is done 92.
No, really?
Yeah.
Amazing, yeah. And they say often as well, don't they, the sort of the blue metallic with the red leather, that's probably the most desirable.
It's not blue metallic.
It is.
Okay, right, we'll discuss this now. This is carbon black.
It's not black though, is it? It's a complete misnomer.
So here's the fact. So when they were actually taking orders for like the 46s and the E60s, BMW dealers had carbon black listed, and everyone went, carbon black, sounds great, sexy.
Yeah.
Ordered black car, got it out in the sunlight, and they're like, my car's blue.
It's really blue though?
Yeah, but it's blue under these lights, but outside it's black.
It's blue.
It's black.
Blue.
Blacky blue.
It's blue
You keep
metallic.
saying it's blue, you're going to be black and blue.
No, but honestly, it's one of the greatest misnomers of paint codes. It's not like Schwarz, is it, which is black metallic. This is blue. Carbon black on a BMW is blue. So, but anyway, that's the most desirable
But
colour
loads of
combination.
people were so peed off when the cars turned up and they were like, I thought my car was
not what I
black,
ordered.
this is blue. So as I say, it is a very Marmite colour.
If they'd called it carbon blue, then everyone, because carbon you think, well, that's like a dark grey, and then it's blue. Should we take it for a drive?
Yeah.
Do you want to drive us out?
Yeah.
Driving impressions. I've driven a few of these, you've driven a load of these.
Yeah.
They just are almost the everyday, everyman sports car. We talk about the Porsche 911 being the only high performance car you'd ever need. I'd argue that the M3 is even better because I think it would put up a decent fight with a 911, normally aspirated. You can actually get real people in the back and it's got a boot.
They are really good in terms of space because you've got massive boot in these, and then also the rear seats and they fold down, so you can put.
Go to IKEA.
You can get loads of rubbish in it. But yeah, they are a really, really good, pleasant car, and manual gearbox. Does it make the difference?
You know, on the CSL, they limited those, but actually, if you produce a valid racing license, you could actually have it delimited.
Yeah, so they're all limited to 155. I think the standard M3s are like 176 miles an hour top speed.
That's quite fast, isn't it?
I've had 170 out of mine.
On
Not
program.
this one, the CS.
Not this one that if you're thinking about buying it because this is in lovely condition. Yeah. It's very nice in here, isn't it? So tell us about the things you've done to this particular car, because someone might watch this video and go, whoa, I fancy a bit of that.
I just had all the paintwork redone just to freshen it up because a bit flat, a bit dull, you know, little stone chips, little marks, and from years of buying and selling anything from Citroen 2 CVs or old MGs all the way up to Ferraris or whatever, you know, you just want stuff to be right and to be perfect. And so I went right through, had all the suspension setup done with bushes, we had the wheels refurbished, Michelin Pilot Sport 4s, new badges for, you know, for the front rear grills, just little things like and the mirrors in these, they tend to leak. Like,
yeah, because the balance on these cars is amazing. It's almost 50-50. You've got that wonderful engine at the front, a true masterpiece of engineering. And these weren't they, for a mass-produced car? They don't feel like a mass-produced car, do they? They drive more like a hand-finished sports car.
They made so many, didn't they?
So many. This was the most popular, the best-selling of all the M products. So when you're buying these cars, Johnny, you've had a lot of these. What do you look out for? What are the main things that go? Obviously, everyone shouts Vanos a lot, don't they?
Yeah, the Vanos was more 36. They still talk about the Vanos now, but then your rod bearings. But one thing everybody will talk about when talking about a 46 is the rear subframe. So the boot floor cracks, and what happens is you get little stress fractures from like bolt points on the boot floor. It was supposed to be reinforced in the later cars like 05, 06 now. Whether there's some of those cars still have those issues. So there's certain companies, what happens is you get these little stress fractures. What they do is they stop drill them, they reinforce, and they put in reinforcement plates, and that sorts out the issue technically.
The M3 was always one of those cars, wasn't it? They get to a certain price point, and we've had this with other cars like the AMG, the C63. They get down to single figure thousands, don't they? They become almost like a cheap track tool, something you can hack about in, and all those jobs that the common faults never get done, never get looked after properly. People just kind of run them on a shoestring. So that's what you've got to watch out for, isn't it? Cars that went through that period with the wrong kind of owner, and now coming might be quite a desirable car, but will need thousands spending.
It doesn't seem that long ago, probably 4 or 5 years. So I'm talking about 2018, maybe 17. You could pick these cars up. I mean, people always say differently, but you could pick them up for $5,000 if you wanted a real dog rough one that needed work doing to it.
Yeah.
The engines in these are about $5,500 as we speak today. So, like, if your engine goes pop, you need $5,500, whereas before you could buy a whole car for that. But yeah, so you're really looking at Vanos rod bearings, boot floor. People always used to go on about the running in services. Now, the running in service was between 1,000 and 1,200 miles. And it's one of those things that's always stuck with the 46 M3, where people go, how's it had the running in service? And you're like, no, it hasn't. Well, I don't want to. All it was, right, was you'd go away, you'd take your brand new M3, and you'd do a bit of miles on it, and you'd take it back to the dealership.
And they just drop the oil.
And they'd just check it over. At first, so what that really was to make sure that you kept your warranty. Most cars did have it. Very few didn't have the running in service. Also, people all wanted 19s and the sat-nav. The sat-nav is
useless.
Dismal.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just rubbish. It's like, it's rubbish. A lot of people, there's like Chinese makes, so what they do is they make like a double din 46 stereo. So it looks factory, but it's got Apple CarPlay and stuff in it.
That's what you want, isn't it?
Yes,
nice
like
upgrade.
200-300 quid. These cars were in the era so where they did come with Bluetooth. Some didn't, weirdly. So rust and rot, front wings really suffered. So they would collect like the water and the dirt, and they will rot from the bottom. Sometimes when you can see a slight little bubbling, and I mean like a pimple on a wing, you could take the wing back and you could find, quite a substantial amount of rot.
So this lovely car we're in now, which you just had paint, have you swapped the wings or were they okay on this one?
No, there was a tiny little bit, which is, I'm glad I did it because I got it at the right time. So I had the bonnet painted, because the bonnets are aluminium, so I had that completely flatted, bare metal, redone. Front and rear bumpers, pretty much I had the whole car resprayed. Bar the roof, which was fine and not chippy or anything. So I've left the roof, but yeah, had the whole car done.
It looks really nice, doesn't it? So this is a great example of a car that you could use quite a lot. I wouldn't suggest anyone daily this car, although you could. It's practical enough.
I dailied my CS for quite a few years, and mine's done. Now, this is where people are like, oh, my M3's done 30,000 miles or 40,000 miles. That's great. That's wonderful. That's a lovely car.
Great investment car, but...
Great investment car, but, it's not super low, like 40, 50,000 miles, but it is low. My CS has done 155,000.
And you've enjoyed them all, that's the thing.
Yeah, and you can get on a longer run nearer to 30 to the gallon out of it. I've also got a E46 330 CI, which is a non-M car, it's just an M Sport, but that's 6-cylinder 3 litre. And the M3 is just as economical as that, if not better, on a longer run.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we think that this is not only a great car to own, an heroic car to own.
It's a great car. Chris Harris said years ago, there was a little snippet into here.
Buy an E46 M3. Go and buy an E46 M3. I'm now absolutely convinced that that's the car.
But Chris Harris said that this, with a manual gearbox, is like one of the best sports cars ever made.
It's a good driving position, isn't it? That's what I love about these. I have to just move your steering column, sorry about this.
It's okay.
Okay, I'll take good care of
I
it.
like mine low down and...
I've heard that about you. Down and dirty. Hey, guess what? We're in a Johnny May car. Guess how much fuel's in this car, ladies and gentlemen? Have a guess.
3/4 of a tank.
You wish. 3/4 of a litre.
Cool.
Tell us about the S54, Johnny. Tell us all about it. It is a jewel of a thing, isn't it?
Yeah, 343 brake horsepower, straight six, naturally aspirated. The CSL's got a little bit more, but that was because of the carbon airbox. So they were at 360.
They had a slightly different map, I think, as well, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. They did have a different map.
And
so
a slightly more aggressive gearbox mapping.
Yeah, these were supposed to be about 5.1 0 to 60, which rear-wheel drive, that's good.
It's just that noise, isn't it?
It is a good noise.
It's very addictive. I do think this is the pinnacle, because I don't think we'll ever see this like again, will we? Because we'll never go back to a relatively big displacement, normally aspirated engine to make this kind of power, because emissions just doesn't let you do it anymore.
Well, that's why when the E90 and E92 and stroke E93, which was the convertible, they were a 4-litre V8. And then because of it, and then people didn't like it because they went turbocharged. We did the BMW 1M at Sasu Automotive. That was a great car. People cursed that because it was the first M car to have a turbocharged engine, and they were going, no, it's rubbish. M car should be NA. Well, look at them all now. You've got the M5, which is turbocharged. You've got the M4, M3s, and they're making like 500 brake horsepower from a 3-litre twin turbo, and they're so tunable. But with these, you can't get massive gains, but it's just such a wonderful thing to drive.
It just feels very hooked up, very connected, doesn't it? That's the thing. Love the gear change.
Genuinely, if you're in an SMG now, you'll be like, I don't like this. You have to spend a bit of time with SMG to get used to it.
This is the thing. So here we are in a busy little town, and it's tight streets, cars parked together. It's a physically quite a small little car, this, isn't it? They're not a big car.
Yeah, but there is a lot of space in them, isn't there?
But this is the thing, huge amounts of legroom. Probably the perfect driving position for me as an orangutan 6'4". You've got this wonderful driving position, the perfect thickness of wheel, this amazing gear change, that wonderful engine sound. Meet the Heroes is all about finding the cars that really tick every single box. And you could argue that this is one of the greatest performance cars you could buy of any period, I think.
Joking aside, I know I own one and I've had loads of them and I've always raved about them. There's a reason for that, because we have been so lucky to drive so many cars, and every time I get back into my 46, I messaged the guys, I was like, I have missed this car. I got it back, I've had some work done to it, and it's just the feel. But you need to drive the CS and you need to drive the CSL, because this is great. This is really good. But, you can upgrade the brakes on these. And talking about that, actually, so the CS and the CSL, they have the bigger brakes and all the rest of it. They're rubbish. You look at so many CSLs that are now running like APs and things like that. It's because you get so much brake fade. I could go do a few hot laps in the CS, and within no time at all there is brake fade on there. I'm actually just in the process, Yam's converting mine to using F80 M3 brakes off like a 2017 car.
But I think that's a really cool resto mod move though. If you use factory parts off a later or better model.
Yeah, it's like OEM Plus instead of putting APs on. But and also you can tighten these up so you can get like a quick rack steering.
Although this doesn't exactly feel baggy, does it?
No, it doesn't, but that's what I'm saying. If you drive one of these and then a CS or a CSL back to back, you'll see it's a lot quicker. But it's something that can easily be done to make it right.
Don't you wish now though, I mean obviously this one you've got for sale, don't you wish now though we bought them all when they were nice ones were like 7-8 grand? Because it wasn't that long ago, was it?
No, but the 36s that ships out, and so there's one of my friends, he's got a beautiful non-Evo Dakar yellow 3-litre E36 coupe.
Oh, that's probably one of my favourite cars of all time. Does he want to sell it?
No, he does not, and it is absolutely stunning.
Woohoo! It just sounds so good, doesn't it?
Like, bearing in mind, they rev to like 7.6.
But that's the thing, it's such a quick revving NA motor. The
Do it
turbocharger almost spoils it, doesn't it? You ready?
Yeah.
That was exactly to 60.
Of course it was.
It really was?
It was actually.
Actually, it was to 60. That is pretty much the 0 to 60 time of this car. That was impressive.
It's good though, isn't it?
People will be able to work that out from the engine rev pitch. They'll know that. They'll know that we were staying within the law there. And we only got to second gear. And I didn't do a full bore start either. That was just quite a gentleman start. When you're in your friend's car, you don't want to knacker his clutch.
Mechanically sympathetic.
Yeah, I think, there's quick starts and stupid starts, isn't there? And that was a quick start. We didn't want to kill the car. It's nice actually, because we're driving Johnny's car today. Obviously, when we're driving other people's cars, we always treat them with ridiculous levels of respect, don't we? And we probably drive them a bit too slowly for a review channel. But actually today it's nice because we're driving your car. And not that we're battering it, but...
No, we're not battering it.
We can do things we wouldn't dream of doing in sales cars.
But yeah, so you're a fan of it. Have you driven one before?
I've driven many of these. I've driven one CSL and hated the gearbox.
But you did.
I did. I hated the gearbox.
But the noise.
Yeah, that's the thing. So you forgive it everything else. So I think all those clever people that have converted their CSLs to manual gearbox,
I think as long as you
probably created the ultimate car. To be honest.
Yeah, I think if you keep the original parts, I don't think it's bad. So,
but why would you ever put it back though? So we're having this debate all the time, aren't we? So do you create a car, or do you build or run a car, and keep it so original that it's always worth more money when you come to sell it, or do you make it into the car? If you're a true petrol head, do you make it into the car that you want it to be and enjoy it all the time you have it, and maybe lose a few quid, or maybe not make as much money as you could have done, but have the car that you want? And all the time I think about making tons and tons of money on a car is nice, but not if you've compromised your ownership of it the whole time you've had it.
It's a bit of a funny one. I know a guy who's got two CSLs identical. One's done sub 10,000, one's done over 90,000. He prefers to drive the one with the more miles on, not because he's keeping the miles off the other one, but because he said it's just better to drive after having done a few miles on it.
I can believe that. Well, if you've enjoyed this little video of ours, thank you so much for watching the E46 M3. Do like, subscribe, ring that bell, and mention in the comments any other cars you'd like to see. Of course, if you want to dress as stylishly as Johnny and me, do visit BeFaster.com. And if you have a classical collectible car, do visit our friends at Haggerty UK, and they'll quite happy to insure it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.